friends, welcome to the program. Today we have a wonderful program for you, and it all begins right here in today's In Focus section. And we're focusing in today, enfocando, on the present conditional structure. So, conditional sentences where we say something happens if something else is true. And in the present conditional, we always see, like typical conditional structures, we see a one-step difference in tense. For example, if I won the lottery, I would buy you lunch. If I won the lottery, I would buy you lunch right now. If I won the lottery, right? I would buy you lunch. So we have this one-step difference in tense. We're talking in the present, but we have to go back one step, okay? So imagine, lo haría si pudiera. I would do it if I could. We're not going to say I would do it if I can. You might say could, but isn't that a past? But, well, it's a hypothetical, but we're going back one step. I would do it if I could. Or, te ayudaría si tuviera suficiente dinero. I would help you right now if I had enough money. Not if I have enough money, but if I had enough money. Past, present, or future, you have to have the money before you can use the money. So we go back one step in tense. I'd help you if I had enough money. Let's practice through translation. So I'm going to give you the sentence in Spanish, and I want you to say it out loud, en voz alta, in English. Okay? Ganaría más dinero si supiera inglés. I'd earn more money if I knew English. Si supiera. I would earn more money if I knew English, and that's often the case. Dejaría la compañía si me cortaran el sueldo. I'd leave the company if they cut my salary. I'd leave the company if they cut my salary. I would leave if they cut my salary. Now, an important thing to remember here is that the if and the would go on opposite sides. Okay? We have a comma here, and we have the if on one side and the would on the other side. Okay? So, if I won the lottery, I would buy you lunch. I would buy you lunch if I won the lottery. Okay? We can change sides, but the if and the would are always on opposite sides. We never say if I would win the lottery. No. If I won, I would. If I were taller, I would play basketball. If I were rich, I would buy a yacht. And I would sail from Miami to the Bahamas. If I were rich. Another rule to consider and to remember is that when we use the verb to be, we don't say if I was. To be grammatically correct, we should say if I were, right? Yo que tú, yo en tu lugar. If I were you, if I were taller, if I were rich, if he were my brother, he would help me. If he were friendlier, he would be my best friend, whatever, okay? So instead of was, we use were. Now, it's important to know that you will hear people say if I was. It's not good English, it's not correct, because it is a subjunctive form. So we should use were, but it's not the end of the world if you use or hear was in this structure. But it's good to speak properly. Okay. ¿Qué harías si eso pasara? What would you do if that happened? Y fíjate, no digo happened, sino happened. What would you do if that happened? What would you do if that happened? Saldríamos si no estuviera lloviendo. We'd go out if it weren't raining. Yeah. We'd go out if it weren't raining. Si no estuviera lloviendo. Yo que tú no lo haría. If I were you, yo que tú, yo en tu lugar, if I were you, I wouldn't do it. If I were you, I wouldn't do it. Si le conocieras, entenderías mi punto de vista. If you knew him, you'd understand my point of view. Punto de vista. Point of view. If you knew him, not if you know him, but if you knew him, you'd understand my point of view. Let's practice with this one, switching the condition and conditional. You'd understand my point of view if you knew him. If you knew him, you'd understand my point of view. Okay? Si fuera verdad, no sé lo que haría. If it were true, I don't know what I'd do. No sé lo que haría. If it were true, I don't know what I'd do. Si no fueras tan cabezota, venderías más. If you weren't so hard-headed, you'd sell more. Venderías más. Yes, cabezota, cabezón, tan hard-headed or stubborn. We have the adjective stubborn as well. If you weren't so stubborn, you'd sell more. If you weren't so hard-headed, you'd sell more. Si no estuviera lloviendo, comeríamos fuera. If it weren't raining, comeríamos fuera. If it weren't raining, we'd eat outside. Comeríamos fuera. We would. We'd. If it weren't raining, we'd eat outside. Si supieran lo que yo sé, los apoyarían. If they knew what I know, they'd help us. Or nos apoyarían. They'd support us, I could say. If they knew what I know, they'd support us. Si pudieras estar a las 3, te lo agradecería. If you could be here at 3, I'd appreciate it. I would, I'd. If you could be here at 3, I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it if you could be here at 3, right? At 3 o'clock. ¿Dónde vivirías si no pudieras vivir aquí? Where would you live if you couldn't live here? ¿Dónde vivirías? Where would you live if you couldn't live here? It's a good question. Si esta casa fuera mía, la ampliaría. If this house were mine, I'd... ¿Cómo es? Ampliar? I'd enlarge it. So to make something bigger, to enlarge. If this house were mine, I'd enlarge it. Si fuera tuya, la destrozarías. If it were yours, you'd destroy it. Si fuera tuya, if it were yours. Si hubiera más gente aquí, terminaríamos antes. If there were more people here, si hubiera más gente aquí, if there were, not was, but if there were more people here, we'd finish sooner. Terminaríamos antes. I'll do one more, una frase más. Si no necesitaran dinero, no estarían aquí. If they didn't need money, they wouldn't be here. No estarían aquí. If they didn't need money, they wouldn't be here. Again, we can change the order. They wouldn't be here if they didn't need money. Okay? So those are some of the essentials and a nice little practice with the second conditional.